Hey, have you ever heard about the term lies to children? Maybe not, right? It's an idea that originates from a 1994 book called The Collapse of Chaos, which deals with, chaos theory. You know, that thing they talk about in Jurassic Park? The book was written by these two Brit bongs, but only saw widespread adoption after its integration into the Discworld series, authored by Ultimate Chad
Terry Pratchett
in the novel The Science of Discworld. To summarize, a lie to children is an explanation of an idea simplified to such a degree that it's technically not even true anymore. Now, this might sound dumb as fuck, but the point is that the lie in this case later guides the listener or reader or whatever to figuring out the actual truth. And without the lie, this endpoint of truth would have been like miles beyond what the person in question was equipped to comprehend at the time.
Don't get it.
Some people within the sciences think this is a necessary approach. You know, we teach children you can't take 3 from 2 until we don't.
Mine is what the fuck?
But others, primarily philosophers, which are somewhat sketchy lot, take issue with it. Here's a quote. A pedagogy of stupidification,
A pedagogy of stupidification is promoted in which teachers abuse students with untruths and then wonder why education has problems.
Fuck all that noise. Let's talk about turns.
The term turn gets tossed around a lot in fighting game discourse, for better or worse, though you might be able to guess which side of that fence I fall on. For anyone unfamiliar with the idea of a turn, the term is used to quickly explain how frame advantage and pressure situations work in fighting games. The sort of general rule set that is used to explain this kind of differs a bit from fighting game to fighting game. In the Tekken series, for an example, the general rule tends to be, if you hit your opponent, you retain your turn.
Nice.
But if they block your attack, then you give that shit up. While in a game like Guilty Gear,
My turn? Now that's some words I haven't heard in a long time. A long time.
of course, this isn't really true. There's tons of stuff to take into account. Some stuff is advantage on guard, and vice versa on hit. There's sidestep, backdash, crushing moves, armor, you name it. But I think the idea of a turn falls pretty squarely under the umbrella concept of lies to children. And this isn't necessarily a problem at all. After all, when a beginner asks a question like, how do I know when it's safe to press buttons? Maybe handing them a 300-page frame data compendium and going, it depends, is probably not the best answer. So instead we use this admittedly false explanation to sort of paint a broad brushstroke and hope that our beginner will, on their journey, cast off the mantle of falseness and step into the light of truth. Or something to that effect. Now, I would definitely say that this is a pretty solid idea in theory, but if we take a peek at the discourse here.
1-2 gives up turn.
Tekken is mostly a turn-based type of game, right?
Never my turn. I legit can't do anything. I might be a +9, but it's still Mr. Leroy's turn.
Play Steve. It'll always be your turn.
I don't know. I get turned on when I see Lee shirtless. Now, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but it seems to me that this lies to children technique isn't really being effectively applied. Turns as a concept seems almost too enticing. Not only does it tie already existing concepts in our brain to this new and unfamiliar territory the beginner is exploring, but it also gives our beginner
an out to certain types of losses.
Stop me if you've ever heard someone describe their opponent being aggressive when at disadvantageous frames as stealing turns. Though this can take many shapes or forms, it's generally expressed by the opponent attacking with fast or invulnerable moves. Beginners relying too heavily on the turn explanation transform this otherwise completely normal interaction into something inherently negative and rule-breaking.
Newsflash, stealing a turn is about as real a concept as turns themselves, which, as we've already covered, don't fucking exist. Not only is mashing on your opponent's turn not realistically any different than hitting them on your own, the rhetoric of stealing a turn doesn't even seem very consistent. Like, why are only offensive actions considered robbery? What about backdashing, or sidestepping, or fucking teleporting? Now, a good lie to children is designed to be as easy as possible to abandon, and this shit does not seem to fit the bill. Do I have an alternative? Fuck no. But maybe we can work together to solve this issue. Something pretty closely related to this that bugs the shit out of me is the idea of safe and unsafe as categories. Alright, I understand that it sounds a bit far-fetched, right? Like, is this dude really just finding problems everywhere? And while that might probably definitely be true, just hear me out, alright? Just for a minute, imagine yourself in the faraway lands of Tekken Saibatsu. You're picking up the game, you learn that -9 and below, you're probably fine, that's safe territory. But after that, you run into the grouping together of punishable frames. -10, dude, that's a bug's bite. I can take a -10 in my sleep. -12, well, that's where it starts to hurt. And -15, bro. We don't even say -15. We say launch punishable. We don't even say the number. It might as well read out fucking death. And while this sort of grouping does come with some useful stuff, it can early on teach you a lot about risk mitigation when you don't know anything about the game's literally unending amount of characters. It also comes with some negatives. In practice, this grouping doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of the game, right? Some characters have garbage -15 punishes, but amazing -13 punishes. I have it on good authority that some characters can even hurt you really badly -10. Getting incredibly punished for your pretty safe -10 move can make your brain come to the conclusion that this is bullshit. I'm not supposed to be able to get launched for that. Why would Harada do this? And I gotta tell you, your little brainy boy is doing that dumb shit again.
Safe and unsafe as descriptors are both context sensitive and in a sort of constant flux.
That is to say, you might feel like you got really punished for doing something that is objectively pretty safe, while in reality, you got super punished for doing something that is contextually really unsafe. Risk mitigating by doing safer moves is, of course, a really good strategy. But try to remind yourself that what is safe and unsafe is context sensitive. If your opponent has a really strong -13 punish, but can do fuck all about your death fist, well, you can see where I'm going with this, right? And while this little hiccup of getting punished a lot tends to sort of resolve itself by getting your shit kicked in over and over and over again, if we work it, flip it, and reverse it, we can see that on the other side of this hiccup, the problem doesn't really seem to go away, like ever. That is to say that people might, and I'm stressing the might here, understand that moves labeled as safe or safe-ish aren't very safe at all if they get their shit pushed in enough. But the label of launch punishable seems very, very, very hard to rub off. It's like some sort of mental roadblock that people crash into. It doesn't matter that my opponent doesn't have a good punish for this move. Have you looked at the tag, dude? It says launch punish ball. Stop letting that get in the way. If you can abuse something, then abuse it. I think the moral of the story here is that you, as the beginner, should probably try to remind yourself that all these things are super duper context sensitive. Maybe that's a bad descriptor. And maybe we should look into better lies to children. Or not. Fuck if I know.